the business of the future, whether it's us or anyone else, AI and global talent have got to be a part of the equation for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't,
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna survive. I mean, I see it everyone around me. It doesn't make a difference, your industry. So embrace this, learn this world. On outsourceaccess.com, we got a zillion videos and education, and whether it's our company or otherwise, I just encourage everyone, don't put your head in the sand, embrace this world, understand what's capable and possible with these staff in all different parts of the world. And then when you take it plus AI, man, it's like 1 + 1 = 4. I mean, we're training all of our
Yeah.
staff in GPT and everything. And when I see
Right.
what they're doing plus that, now you're talking about superpower, right? When you
Yeah.
talk to scale. And it's unfortunate.
Yes.
I wish things would slow down a little bit and go back to the days of, pagers and flip phones, but it's the world that we're in right
It's
now.
unlikely gonna happen. Yep.
Welcome to the Strategy at Scale podcast, brought to you by Scaling Up Outthinker and Growth Institute. I'm your host, Kaihan Krippendorf. Our mission is to cut through a sea of conflicting business advice and get to what actually works. We talk to entrepreneurs and business builders who've successfully scaled companies across industries to extract proven, high-impact strategies for building long-term value. You just heard from Brad Stevens, entrepreneur, systems thinker, and founder of Outsourced Access, one of the fastest growing firms helping small and mid-sized businesses scale through strategic outsourcing. Brian has built a business around a simple but powerful idea that virtual teams, when structured the right way, can unlock massive efficiency, flexibility, and growth. Brad didn't start in outsourcing. He discovered its power firsthand while salvaging his previous business. What began as a survival move turned into a lifelong strategy. Now, Outsourced Access supports over 500 companies across 85 industries in scaling more rapidly and efficiently. Along the way, he's become a go-to voice on how to systematize operations, delegate effectively, and think globally without losing your personal touch. In this episode, we cover how Brad turned a personal business crisis into a playbook for scaling through virtual teams, the questions he asks when diagnosing a business that's stuck, and the first systems he installs to unlock growth, why he invests heavily on onboarding, culture, and well-being for offshore team members, how outsourcing, done right, can actually improve retention and morale for onshore employees, the growing role of AI in amplifying what outsourced teams can do, and why leaders need to embrace both. If you're looking to do more with less or scale without burnout, this episode is packed with real practical insights you can put into action right away. Let's dive in with Brad Stevens. Brad, so great to have you on the podcast. I've gotten to meet you many times and see you speak many times, and I'm really excited to dig in. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. And same to you, sir. Been always, it seems like every 6 months or so, we end up bumping each other into a conference
Yep.
or an event and get to catch up on what's going on. And always enjoy our subject matter. I think over a,
Yeah.
a rather smoky bourbon in Vancouver last time was our last chat.
Yes, that was nice. Yes, yeah, warm bourbon in a cold Vancouver it was. Excellent. Well, I want to really dig into this idea of like organizational design and alignment and stuff, and the optimization, because that's like an area of expertise that you get pulled in and you could help a lot of companies with. But first, I'd like to briefly go over the outsourced access journey, and I've already described briefly in the intro what that is, what you do. Probably not exactly accurately, but let's just first start off. How do you first identify that there was an opportunity, and what was that opportunity? What did you see in the market or among customers, or what was going on that you said, this is something that I want to commit myself to for the next many years?
Sure. I mean, and for a lot of people who've gotten into my industry, it's based on their own personal experience in another industry. And so for me, I was building another company. We were manufacturing distributed teeth whitening products globally. And I started using, offshore teams. I actually had a product fiasco that happened. Cash got tight. I had to get lean. I'd always heard about offshoring and so forth, but I had to become a real student real fast. And so about 10 years ago, I kind of dug in and really became a student and, learned about the gig economy platforms and different parts of the world and what were people capable of. And just it absolutely changed the game for my business, and it helped me, redefine, how I was able to scale my company. And so I became so passionate about it, not only for the impact I saw for small to medium business, because most people think of outsourcing, it's big, huge hump companies and call centers, right? They don't think about it working and supporting for small to medium business. But then the impact we're making on the lives of our staff, for us in the Philippines, I mean, just game changing and being aligned to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and being able to have an impact there. So that's where motivated my initial passion just for my own user experience. So we ended up selling that business. I decided, you know what, I want to get in this industry. I want to bring to every other small to medium business owner out there the same experience that I had, right? Not necessarily replacing people, but augmenting and helping small to medium businesses scale in a way that they didn't have access to otherwise, that they didn't know was possible.
Got it. And then how did you know that you might have an advantage in pursuing this? Because, there were already some players there, and there's always the threat of new entrants.
Sure.
And what did you have or bring to the game or something that made you think of future new entrants, I could win here?
Well, I kind of was able to do a little bit of my own market research. So before I launched Outsource Access, between kind of selling my last business, as I got to speak a lot on this, I got asked kind of accidentally, part of EO Entrepreneurs Organization, now part of YPO and a bunch of other organizations. Think about 7 or 8 years ago, it was still kind of in its infancy. People had, Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week. And so I got a chance to go speak for hundreds of organizations. I mean, I spoke for 80 or 90 EO chapters and others. I got to get in front of small to medium business owners, globally, and hear what their challenges were, how they perceived offshoring and outsourcing. When I say outsourcing, I joke around, there's all these like word bubbles that pop above everybody's head. They're all different, right? What about competency, language, ability, time zones, and so forth? I got a chance to understand all those word bubbles, what they were, how to address them. And then, my deliverable back then was doing consulting. So companies would bring me in and I would do a deep dive, and at that point I developed a 2-question exercise, Kian, that I still use today. And I would simply say, what is it that you're doing that you don't think is the best use of your time? And how many hours per month are you spending on it? And if you're, a CEO or a business owner, giving your staff psychological safety to answer that question. And then secondly, from where you sit in this business, what do you think that we should be doing that we are not doing, typically due to time, money, or knowledge constraints?
Money, knowledge constraints.
And I take those 2 questions when I was doing my consulting, and the owners of the business would say, Brad, that's really simple. Consultants only come in with 400 pages of this. I said, I know. Just take these 2 questions, send them to your staff, and every time people would come back and unload all kinds of things that they thought that wouldn't be the best use of their time, and then what are they not getting to? And it got to the root of growth constraint for those businesses. People were doing things that weren't the highest and optimal use of their competency and their ability. And furthermore, they weren't happy because they weren't doing that. So it was a culture impact. Then secondly, there's all the stuff on the sidelines that aren't being pursued. And a lot of times people sit in different departments. They were seeing things that the business needed to do but they never got asked. Business owners would say, Jane, you've been with me for 8 years. You came back with 42 items on this list. Why'd you Well, you never really asked me. So that gave me an interesting purview doing consulting for 3 or 4 years with hundreds of companies. And I got a chance to see what are the constraints and then also what are the perceptions about offshoring and outsourcing in terms of competency, turnover, and issues. So when I launched Outsource Access, I kind of had that entire mental state so I could build my organization to kind of avoid those failure points.
So before we go into building your organization, just want to summarize what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that you're going in with 3 advantages. First, a deep understanding of what the pain points are from all of this interaction that you've had. Second, access to these prospective clients who, through EO, through YPO, you have a trusted relationship with. And I'm also hearing a real passion for this problem and what it could do both for your clients and for the people in the Philippines or wherever you decide to go. Those are three advantages I hear. Taking those 3, great. So taking those 3, you jump in, and how do you think about, what are some of the key design choices you made when you thought about building your organization or operations?
Yeah, so from those kind of learnings, right, a lot of the things that I heard is turnover issues, right? And the people would hire people off of job boards or gig economy or for companies that would find them people, and all of a sudden they'd invest time and effort into educating and working with these individuals, and then they would kind of disappear. So one of the choices I made was to incorporate in the Philippines. So by incorporating, it allowed us to hire people as full-time employees. We could pay their health insurance, we could pay their benefits, right? But also it's helping us attract the right kind of people that are pursuing this as a career path, right? Not gig economy, wanting to bounce all over. The people that want to be a part of an organization in the Philippines, they respect and appreciate what we're developing. We got leadership development, culture, infrastructure there, management, so that we're bringing a sustainable experience, right, to our clients. by having employment agreements and people that are committing, so that when we, end up finding clients and matching our staff and working with them. And by the way, we keep managing the staff, right? We don't just hand someone over and say, hey, here's your person. We manage them. And that's another element I'll talk about.
Yep.
But incorporating and hiring people's full-time employees was a big element, because it's bringing the right people to the table, because that translates into sustainability, consistency. One of those word bubbles is, what about turnover? What about sustainability? My friend John did this, and his person disappeared after 5 months, and he decided to give it up because he didn't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
So that was one of the biggest pain points that I heard.
Maybe just bring that to life for us. What is it like to be an outsource access? What do you call them? You call them resources? You call them employees? What do you call them?
It's interesting when it comes to vocabulary in my industry, right? It's kind of challenging because everybody calls it different things, right?
Yeah.
Some people just call everyone a virtual assistant, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't make a difference if they're doing, CFO level financial modeling, which we have staff in the Philippines that are doing that for some of our clients. Or if they're doing, general, kind of admin. So it's kind of shifted more to, yes, to our employees internally at Outsource Access corporately.
Yes, what I'm calling.
We call, everybody team members, right?
Team members, okay,
Right,
great.
as part of our organization for our clients, offshore staff, right?
Yeah.
But funny enough, you ask any of our clients, they feel like our staff are just a part of their team. They treat them just
Cool.
like a part of their team.
That's
They
great.
show up to their meetings.
Gotcha.
They make virtual birthday cakes. As I saw a picture the other day, one of our staff did that for one of their clients. So yeah.
Cool. But I just want to use the right term. So they're teammates. So what is it like? Just bring it to life. What is it like to be a teammate at Outsourced Access? Do you work at home? Do you work on site? What do you celebrate birthdays? Do you have a manager? Do you wear a shirt that is Outsourced Access, or I wear a shirt of the client that I'm serving? Just bring that to life for us.
Hey, actually, all of those things. It's like you've been around the block. But yeah, and I'll share, kind of speaking to that point, one of the other key elements of why I chose the Philippines, and for those listening that may or may not, and understanding people's perception of different countries, is that the Philippines was completely kind of controlled by the U.S. up until 1947 or so. So it's completely Americanized culture, English speaking, right? So there's not as much of a culture gap at all, really, when someone's going to plug in, right, and work. We got a suburban Philadelphia painting company that has 3 staff working side by side with their employees there. So culturally, there's not as much of a gap. So when it turns into how we treat our staff and our staff's experience, so what it means to be a part of our organization at Outsource Access is, first of all, we're fanatical about our core values, right? A lot of people have core values. They're on a wall, they're on a piece of paper and so forth. I'm a huge Jim Collins fanatic, and we launched the company. We had an implementer that helped us with getting things open, and she made us reread Good to Great again, right? And I was like, Good to Great, back in the day, wasn't that like Circuit City failing and so forth? But reading it through the lens of growing a company as fast as I was growing, and I was also president of the Entrepreneurs Organization for EO Atlanta, it was like, these are timeless principles. And ended up having me go down a deep rabbit hole and that, but we ended up coining our core values, great, right? Gratitude, relationship driven, ever-long quest for improvement, accountability, right? Accountability and teamwork. So core values are something we believe in heavily. And so when we go to recruit people, we're going through thousands of people per month, right? So we do IQ testing, emotional intelligence testing. We're using assessments like predictive index to make sure they're a right fit. So as far as the journey experience, before you join, that we're a company that really cares about how we select people. So the perception is, that we really care about our selection process. We do a lot of interviews and evaluation because, when we're trained, making you a part of one of our clients' teams and a part of our own, culture is very important. But then once you're onboarded, we have a career path discussion with you. We figure out, hey, what is the path that you want to do? And we have that ongoing conversation with everyone. You just want to continue to being a virtual assistant, or do you want to be a manager at some point? We have 8 branded internal programs. We have a program called ISOF, which is In Search Of, that is nothing but just personal development programming, everything from financial wellness to, how to be a better mother or father, called ISOF. Our leadership development program is called SOAR, SOAR. That is, we have constant leadership development of all of our staff and their growth. We invest heavily in external learning platforms and education like LinkedIn Learning and Udemy. I spend 20, 30 grand a year. We create entire learning and education paths for people. We have social clubs, everything from fur babies to baking groups to all kinds of different social. And giving back is a huge element. And so I got a chance, because of EO, to speak on the floor of the United Nations headquarters back right before I launched the company as a part of a think tank that EO was doing with the UN. And I learned about the Sustainable Development Goals. And, my very first VA that I hired, who crazy enough became my COO, over 500 people in 4.5 years.
Wow.
But a month after we started working together, she sent me a picture of these shoes she had bought for these young children in a village. And she said, Brad, because the money that I'm making working with you, I'm actually able to, buy these, shoes for children in this village. I have to walk an hour back to school.
Wow.
And about that time, I got a chance to speak at the United Nations headquarters, and I learned about the Sustainable Development Goals, right? The 17 SDGs. They touch on everything, related to humanity and the environment. And so I brought that back to my company from the very beginning. So every quarter we interview our employees, not Brad's passion points, but what do our employees care about? And we survey them and say, which do you care about? And then we invest and fund an initiative tied to one of the SDGs, whether it's zero hunger, whether it's life on land. So we've planted hundreds of trees to offset carbon emissions. To my last trip over there, one of the commitments is a children's cancer center, and they're about to lose their building. And we committed as a company to help pay for half of it to fund to save the building to support these 200 kids that were dealing with pediatrics. So it's a full culture experience.
Yeah. Just doing a double click on that, giving back. I love that because I think that often the idea of doing good, companies, or even if they elevate it, it's not aligned to their brand or to their purpose or to their strategy. It's like, I make shoes, or I make, I want to make the best quality furniture. And then when we give back, we're going to give back to very important causes. We're going to give back to flood relief and to water availability, which is great, but it's so powerful when it also aligns with your strategy. And here, if part of your strategy is self-reliance or self-determination, right? The fact that your giving back strategy is part of the self-determination of your people to be able to say, this is important to me, and I'm going to direct the company in that way. It kind of unifies them.
Exactly. I mean, and I think part of it, I thought we kind of direction there, is that a lot of companies, they don't ask their employees what they care about, right? And a lot of it's, about what they kind of have a mission and tied to, and it can be tied to their strategy. But ultimately, my strategy is to have engaged, desired employees that want to be a part. Fundamental two things. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and they just want to know that they're recognized and appreciated.
Love it.
And so this initiative is a part of that, being a part of something bigger than themselves. They say that we invest in the community, but that they're recognized. So another part of our culture kind of really is, we create our own magazine. We have our own magazine. I think we're the only company in the Philippines that has our own magazine called Virtual Success. It's fully published, showcases all of our employees. Our top, we bring them in, we do a photo shoot, we kind of do makeup, they get a chance to tell their whole story. It's a whole magazine that can nothing but our own employees and celebrating their story and their journey. We have a podcast featuring them. And we actually just launched recently a TV kind of video docuseries called Scaling Breakthrough, featuring our staff. So it's about celebrating them. And I write personal welcome messages to all of our staff that come on board. I did one the other day. And so I want them to feel like they're recognized as an individual. I mean, compensation and benefits are all kind of table stakes. It's how do you make people feel?
Yeah, awesome. So I want to make sure we have time to talk about you talking to a client and kind of how they think about all those things, the operationalizing of the business. But just really quickly, let's talk about profit and how you decide what to invest in. Like when you look at your profit you have, or your investors that invest in you, how do you have any rules that you follow in terms of deciding what to invest your profit in?
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to, I funded this whole, kind of thing from the beginning, and was able to kind of get it launched without having to kind of go external.
No outside external capital.
No, so it was, and we designed and architected in a way, right, to structure it and build it with future needs kind of in mind. But, for me,
how did you do that? Did you focus on like the kind of like you front load the profit generating elements of the product? Is that?
Well, first of all, was to price it appropriately, right? And so, and again, we constantly re-index our economics, because running an organization like mine, right? It's not like you get to leverage fixed expense like we're manufacturing flagpoles, right? Your marginal unit cost goes down the more you drive up production. For me, I've got an additional person incrementally, right, per client, and there's a fixed payroll and costs associated with that. We certainly didn't do everything right, but trying to be very proactive on the economics and really looking at all the all-in costs. And so most entrepreneurs, I find that's one of the biggest things that I learned from school was I'm big on building the numbers and living in the numbers and real numbers. so I can make sure the economics are right. So we tried to build
Yeah.
the economics and price things appropriately, build in the proper cost increases
Yeah.
and so forth.
Because then essentially what you're doing is you're kind of, from a pure economic, you're buying talent long and you're selling it short. So you're standing in between those two, right?
Yeah, and these individuals, right? You got to have increase in cost of living. You know, we pay
Yep.
performance bonuses, and so our clients have to understand there's an increase associated with it. And so yeah, it's a long term game, and then
Yeah, long-term, yeah.
and then I got exchange
Yeah.
rate changes, right? Especially the time we're in right
Oh,
now, the value of the
right,
U.S.
right,
dollar.
right.
So I've got to constantly, when I do my model, I've got to constantly do plus or minus the best and worst scenarios on FX rates. I mean,
Yep. I got you.
it's changed substantially, but
All right. Got it. Yeah,
but
that's
investing
awesome.
back, to quickly answer that, is yes, we are very committed from day one. I never want my staff to feel like they don't have the support and resources. So I've had a philosophy, probably to a fault, of like whatever you need to invest in terms of additional support, people, technology, that comes first before profit, to make sure our people feel supported
Okay.
and they got the right resources in place. And then giving back, these initiatives and projects are just a standard part that we commit to. All that stuff has to come first, before the bottom line hits.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, so you have like so you kind of like have the prioritized order, and these things get invested in before
Non-negotiables.
yeah, non-negotiables. Love it. Okay, great. All right, so now in the last bit of time that we have with you, talk to me now about you Outsource Access. You have helped how many? Like I think it's like 500 companies. You're serving like something like that.
Well, that's
right?
staff. I mean, it's thousands of companies.
staff.
that-
5 times
Yeah.
staff. Yes, thousands of companies. that you've
85
helped.
industries. It's been crazy.
In terms of in terms of like thinking about what do companies do you find get wrong when they've come to you, probably because there's something that got junked up in their processes or their people or their org structure or something like that, and they're like, I need help. They go to you. What's the most common trip up that brings them to you?
I tell you, it's crazy all over the map. The different, I mean, like I said, working with 85 different industries and companies, from a solo professional speaker that's got one staff that helps him get more speaking gigs to, a $300 million pharmacy that's got, 8 to 10 staff with us, and one that had up to 80 to 90 people with us. It's been kind of all over. So it falls in a couple
varies a lot.
different buckets,
Okay.
depending on the
Buckets.
size of business and what their particular needs are. Yeah, some clients that they get offshoring and outsourcing, they're just looking for a reliable company. They come to me with the process, what they want, what they need. They just want a company that can provide consistent managed talent at scale. And so that's one type of scenario. But then you got companies that come to us that, on the opposite stream, that they've heard about offshoring, right? They know that it can be a path to help them scale and grow the business and be more effective, whether it's an individual or we got a lot of COOs that are our entry point, right? They're in charge of driving profitability and efficiency of the organization for the CEO. And this is one of the tools in the toolbox is offshore, but they're not sure where to begin. And so this goes back to that 2-question exercise a little bit I shared in the beginning.
Yeah.
Is that's why a lot of people, they don't know what they don't know about what their constraints are. And so we say, this is a great place to start. Take these 2 questions. What are you doing that's not the best use of your time, and how many hours are you spending on it? And give your people psychological safety to tell you things that they don't think are the best use of their time.
Yeah.
And what do you think that we should be doing that we're not doing due to time, money, or knowledge constraints? And those 2 simple questions create this runway of constraints that a lot of times the owners didn't even know were an issue until they start asking their staff, and then we start creating roles to support them.
Yeah, I can imagine like the owner thinks, oh, this only takes Janet like 5 minutes, and then you ask Janet, she says, no, I spend 3 hours a week on this. How first of all, let's just go through that process. How long does that first step take, asking those 2 questions and looking across the company? Is that is that a 1 hour team meeting? Is it like a month long effort?
And it'll vary depending on the
depends.
size of the organization. But like I said, when some companies, they come, here's a predetermined role, we plug in, we can get them staffed and placed in a week or 2. You get some that are a little bit in between that, right? Where they're not that clear on it, but they know, hey, I need someone in accounting and bookkeeping. I haven't got the role defined, but that's the work that I'm looking for, or I need to build inside sales. So that's kind of that hybrid situation where they got a little bit of clarity, but not quite sure. And that can take 2 to 3 weeks to get clarity on the roles, get that clearly defined. And then that 2 questions, if somebody goes deep in that process, and a lot of times people will have some low-hanging fruit. They come to us and are like, hey, I know I need this role. Let's go ahead and start recruiting and place this one. But I like that 2-question concept. Let me do that with my team. We've got a big national healthcare company we're working with right now, and a national franchise group. And they're like, I want to do that. And so they'll do it parallel. And so we say, hey, send those 2 questions and give people 1 week, right? Say, hey, 1 week, I want you to brain dump in all of these categories, things you want off your plate, things you think we should be doing. Then come and meet, and we have a whole template that we give them that they can dump those answers into that's really simple.
Okay.
And then we'll meet with them, we'll discern it, and actually we built a pretty cool custom GTP platform that we can take somebody's constraints and it'll turn it into offshore staffing roles and give ROI per line item task that they would be doing.
That was my next question. How do we prioritize? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we've been able to I got to take unstructured constraint data because every business is different. We got these issues in operations, and like that pharmacy example, right? One of them, they had a warehouse issue where data, one of the operations staff is like, data's all over. If I could get this one report in my inbox every single day that pulled data from this and summarized it in this, I could make a huge financial impact. And so we took it, we figured out a process, we wrote it, got a staff who pulled it, executed it. Now it was in his inbox every week, and I think it was a $50,000 impact it had in the business in the first quarter. So it's an evolving process, but that 2 question, they'll do it, they come back, and then, but it's been such a cultural lift, as I was sharing, before we started, because the other thing is, aside from just figuring out constraints and how to grow the business, all these employees are doing stuff that isn't the best use of their time. They're not hitting the ground with their feet hitting the floor every day saying, I get to go do X. And by putting this out there, they're finally getting asked what they don't think is the best use. And when you purify their roles, now you get people that are happier, they're performing better in their roles. You strip that other stuff off, and crazy enough, it becomes a retention tool for the company. I have one client says, Brad, this is the best retention tool for my W-2 employees in the US because they can't go work for anybody else, where an owner gets the vision to provide an offshore staff to support them to take all the stuff off their plate that they don't want. So interesting competitive advantage I didn't know was out there until I got told.
So I'm hearing like, in prioritizing, we're looking at ROI, we're looking at kind of staff happiness, we're looking at kind of overall efficiency. Anything else that you look at when you're thinking about what to start with?
Yeah, so we take that list, we kind of rank it, and we'll say, everything that Jane wants off of her plate that she don't think is the best use of her time, and then how many hours is she spending on it, right? So, you'll take Jane, and all of a sudden she'll say, I'm doing this task is 4 hours, I'm doing this task is 7 hours. The CEO's like, Jane, I had no idea you're still doing TPS reports. Well, you asked me to do them 3 years ago, and I'm still sending them to you. I never even look at those. Okay, well, that's 6 hours. Let's take that off of your plate. And then the things that they're not doing. So we'll take it, rank it, and then collectively the organization will say, which of these, if we can execute, either get off of somebody's plate. So John, VP of operations, can get this off his plate. He can go help the CEO go close more $200,000 deals.
Yeah.
That's top priority. This is top priority. So we'll rank them and then take the top 5 to 10 and say, okay, let's focus on these first. Because we can't get to a whole list, right? We will over time. But we'll prioritize what has the biggest financial impact on the business, either in terms of opportunity cost of things that aren't getting done, or better use of people's time. Rank it, organize it, find the people, plug them in from our team, get them executing that. And the number one word is confidence. I mean, I tell these people how great all this is going to be, but it's not until they have that first experience. And I love when I hear it. It's one of my favorite emails, or when I do my podcast interviews. They're like, Brad, it was like you said, I got this back. It was amazing. She did a great job. And in fact, she took it 3 steps further, and now she's taking it on her own. When they build that confidence, that's when the snowball starts happening, and now becomes a part of the culture in the organization, which I've heard so many times, where sometimes it can be pushed back because part of this is integration with existing staff and perception. They've got to be willing to kind of embrace this. But once they do, and they realize it's not replacing them, it's augmenting them, then they start getting on board, and that's when people will add others in other departments, and it becomes a part of the culture of how they scale as an organization.
I see. So you're saying the confidence that, oh, I outsourced this, I automated this, it worked. Now that gives me the confidence to start thinking about doing it in other places.
They're like, for that cost, I can get that level of competency. Absolutely. There's a whole set of things over here. We've been wanting to launch a new division in Milwaukee, but I've had nobody to do the competitor research and analysis and figure it out. Absolutely. So we can have one of your people go research that, and then go support Jane and take all the LinkedIn and CRM administration off her plate so she can go focus on closing deals.
Love it.
And vice versa. So it kind of runs through.
Got it. So I have a kind of vague question in my mind. I'm not going to articulate it, or if you're going to have a response to it, but I'm kind of envisioning like maybe like a crab that's growing. And the crab grows a shell, and then the shell gets constrained. And they need to shed the shell. They get to break the shell, and they need to build a new shell. And you talked about that companies come at you at different stages. So I'm wondering if you have a sense of like, I would think like they come to you and they're using it, and then they get a certain level and they're like, all right, now we need to
optimize, but there's probably legacy stuff that we have been doing that we probably shouldn't be doing anymore. We got to clean that up, and there's new stuff we need to add. Is there like a maturity, kind of stages of maturity, and at which stages of maturity do you add, do you look at and shed operations? I don't know if that question makes sense.
No, it's a lot about mindset, man. It really depends. I'll go, when I was speaking, and I was speaking to a ton of this, I'll go speak to a bunch of 300 entrepreneurs. I'd share all these case studies and examples. And that's why we're in 85 different industries, because industry doesn't matter, right? There would be the 10 people in that room out of the 300 that are like, I get it. I see how this can solve the problem, and they can connect the dots in their head about how to differently frame to solve the problem, right? It's similar to how AI is, right? As they talk about that study that Tulane University did, right? It's talked about, they gave it to tons of people. AI alone doesn't solve the problem. It's the people who can look at the problem differently and reframe how to solve the problem, and they see how this can integrate and work. And it's crazy. When I was speaking, as I'm sure you can see in people's eyes, the ones that like are really processing and getting this, and they're already connecting the dots in their head of how this is going to solve things. So I would say, and there's different stages that we come into businesses, but a lot of it starts with, like I said, we got a complete, solopreneur that's a global speaker, or small businesses that are a couple $1 million that, that've got 5 staff with us, right? And then I've got $10 million businesses that, only got 1, but they should probably have 15 with us, because the smaller business embraced it, they got it, they're running with it. I mean, like client of ours, Chip Dodd up in Virginia. I mean, he's been with us for 5 years, got they go in the homes and provide kind of the mentally challenged, individuals in Virginia. He got this. He saw me speak at an event. He got him an executive assistant. He's like, I get this, but I got to help my team get buy-in. So I'm going to get one myself first. I'm going to let them see how great she is. Then they're going to want him. That's what happened. He got one. They saw the impact. Then Jane of HR is all of a sudden like, wow, Chip, she's good. I was kind of doubting that first. Can I get one? And then it rippled through the organization. So I would say entry point starts with mindset to begin with, regardless of size. But then as companies are getting, as we know, the $3 million kind of, abyss, the $10 million trench, as you're going through that next stage, you're having to retool, like ourselves. We grew so fast. I've been in that journey myself the last 12 to 15 months. They're in that next stage, and they're having to bring people on that are rethinking about how to scale. That's where this becomes, embraced.
Gotcha.
And generationally, it tends to be some, depending on relatively younger, right, in terms of being willing to look at things a new and different way, right? Versus kind of an old
age
way.
is sort of a mindset as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a younger, a more innovative mindset, right? If you will.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. I love it. So, I mean, there's so many other questions I have, and we could learn from you here, but what's something that I didn't get to ask you didn't get to say? That an entrepreneur that's looking to build a business that's going to scale, or take this business and really scale it, that they should have in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of, now more than ever, things are wildly disruptive, and everybody's having to rethink their business model. And I've got a client I was interviewing the other day on our podcast that's got a publishing business, and they have an online magazine, and all of a sudden Google released that, hey, we're no longer going to be indexing and giving you visitors per 6 pages. It's going to be per 18 pages, like overnight, changing the game, right? From an SEO standpoint. So, I think, separate from outsourcing and all of that stuff, I think, people now more than ever have got to look at their business models and reevaluate where and how they are adding value, and ensure, do they have the proper moats around them, and do they have the proper, to your point we talked about earlier, what is your true competitive advantage? What are the big things that differentiate? And talk to ChatGPT a whole lot, right? If you haven't built a muscle to do that, and you just got to build the muscle. And so whether it's, I helped my children last Saturday morning in here, write a children's book, and we did the whole illustration. So I'm teaching my little ones, like, how to use ChatGPT. My son, when he hates eating vegetables, he calls it the boringest bean. He always uses adjectives a little different. So you know what? That's a good children's book. We're going to have the theme about like how children should eat their vegetables. So he came in here and we made the boringest bean children's book, the cover page on it. We printed it off. Now all the people that come over and visit our house, he like runs over and shows it to them.
Oh, I love it.
But the point being is building that muscle that you're using it for everything, and reframing what you're thinking about and competitive advantage. And, for us, we're growing, we're in 85 industries, but I want to niche down in some key ones, right? I love being super diversified, but I'm living a lot in what's recession proof. What is an AI not going to replace tomorrow that we can kind of focus on? So I think everybody overall, no matter what business that you're in, how can you reshape what you're doing and how you're doing. Like that publishing company, they've got all these amazing relationships of all these writers, and they've got hundreds of thousands of subscribers in the Southeast. They're now going to say, let's go leverage all of our subscribers and let's go make them micro influencers and launch multi-podcasts now, because podcasts, like what you and I are doing, is what they're saying is the stuff that's gonna live, right? Authentic, real, educational, valuable content. So it's revisiting where people are. And then as you're doing that, look, you cannot, I mean, the business of the future, whether it's us or anyone else, AI and global talent have got to be a part of the equation for everyone. If you don't, you're just not gonna survive. I mean, I see it, everyone around me, and it doesn't make a difference, your industry. So embrace this, learn this world, on outsourceaccess.com, we got a zillion videos and education, and whether it's our company or otherwise, I just encourage everyone, don't put your head in the sand, embrace this world, understand what's capable and possible with these staff in all different parts of the world. And then when you take it plus AI, man, it's like 1 + 1 = 4. I mean, we're training all of our staff in GPT and everything. And when I see what they're doing plus that, now you're talking about superpower, right? When you talk to scale. And it's unfortunate. I wish things would slow down a little bit and go back to the days of, pagers and flip phones, but it's the world that we're in right now.
It's unlikely going to happen. Yep. All right. So outsourceaccess.com, they should go there. Can they also find your podcast there and your other writings there?
Yeah, outsourceaccess.com. And if anybody wants to go to LinkedIn, I'm Brad Stevens. I'm not the Celtics coach. I'll never rank one on Google because of the Celtics coach. But we do LinkedIn Lives, actually a big part of our content. We do tons of content out there.
Awesome.
And enjoy sharing. But yeah, check us out and love to.
Thank you. Last question. In addition to Jim Collins, Good to Great, what's another book that an entrepreneur should read?
I mean, right now, just real top of mind is the AI-driven leader is one that they're tactical current. I mean, Jim Collins is such great timeless. I'm always John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Actually, it's a summary of it I send to all of my staff. But the AI-driven leader by Jeff Woods right now, there's a lot of super tactical stuff on AI, but I like his. He zooms back and asks everyone to really look at, back to what we were talking about earlier, is how to reframe problems. What will the AI-driven leader in organizations, how will they reframe how they kind of go about things? So it's a good zoom back to kind of look at how you integrate it into your thinking.
Great. Awesome. Brad, thank you so much for such a rich, packed session here. And thank you for what you do and for sharing it with us.
For you too, man. Thanks for all the content and education you put out there, and enjoy the journey. We'll see each other over bourbon in maybe another 6 months.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Strategy at Scale. Thank you to our guest, Brad Stevens, our producer, Nazanin Humayun Jam, our editor, James Pierce, and the rest of the team at Outthinker and Scaling Up. If you like what you heard, please follow, download, and subscribe. I'm your host, Kaihan Krippendorf. Thank you for listening again. We'll catch you next time with another episode of Strategy at Scale.